Guys, it finally happened. It feels like just yesterday when I was disemboweling 100 Sonic movie plushes to get Paramount's attention so I could go to the Sonic movie premiere. And nearly 5 years later, I got the call. Guess the first two got lost in the meal or something. It's gotta be it. That's right, I gotta travel to London last week for the premiere of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And being the guy who had, thoughts on the second one, I was eager to see just how this installment would play out after seeing how much they appeared to be going all out on this one. During all the hype in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but remember how excited I was for 2 based on all the promotional material, and how I felt the final product didn't fully reach the levels I was expecting. And so what I think of 3? Guess you gotta watch and find out. I'll give my general thoughts without any spoilers, by the way. I will later go into detail about certain things, but I'll make it clear when that's coming, so if you just want to get my general thoughts without having anything ruined, then don't worry, that'll come. First of all, I also want to make it clear that while I'm super grateful to Paramount and Sega for the invite to the premiere, as well as the pre-screening party where I got to show off my epic gaming whiz skills, I won't be letting any of that get in the way of my review. Whether a movie is good or bad in my opinion has nothing to do with any of that stuff. Can I come to the next one now? Either way, let's jump into it. The most basic plot description I can give is that Sonic 3 stars Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles as they're brought to take care of this new black hedgehog that's been destroying Tokyo, leading to the trio needing to team up with Robotnik to figure out what his deal is. That general setup really only covers the first third of the movie though, as they pretty quickly divert to Eggman teaming up with his newly found grandfather, Gerald Robotnik, as they both, along with Shadow, aim to take over the planet. I think what I enjoyed most about this adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2 is that they could have so easily just focused on the source material, while abandoning all the aspects of the first 2 films people hated so much, most notably, the humans. But I think 3 does the best job at balancing all this. Mainly because instead of trying to get Sonic and his friends to fit all this human junk, they're trying to get the humans to fit all the Sonic junk. Honestly, I would have found it jarring if they'd ditched everything set up in the previous 2 movies to focus on introducing Rouge and Amy and all the stuff from the video game, because it would probably make it feel weird to watch this as a trilogy like there's a massive shift in the 3rd installment. Instead, they chose to adapt what would fit this universe and ditch what wouldn't, and I think it's super smart. Everything in some way ties itself back to a few notable plot points from the other films, mainly contrasting Sonic's experience on Earth to Shadow's, and dealing with Eggman finally meeting a member of his family, then mentioning in a throwaway line in the first film that he was an orphan. All that stuff worked great. Shadow definitely stole the show, even if I feel like he isn't without issue. A slight nitpick I have with Sonic 2 is that it never felt like Knuckles got enough spotlight, aside from in action scenes. We really only had that final moment of the 2 of them on the beach, in which I had hoped similar scenes to that had been sprinkled throughout the film. I want to see these guys talk as well as try to kill each other, you know? And not only do I find this movie to do a much better job at showcasing Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles interacting, you really do buy that these guys are friends here, more so than any game or show has done in the past decade. You know, Tails, while still not getting much of any focus, feels way more fun to watch compared to the last where he spent the whole movie saying, "Only Sonic the Hedgehog would," followed by whatever we just saw happen. God, that sucked. Thankfully, it never feels like Shadow has been sidelined for any of this other stuff, despite spending so much of the movie apart from Team Sonic. Really, I only have 2 big issues with the movie, even if they aren't the end of the world or anything. The first being that if you've played Sonic Adventure 2, it's hard not to feel as if there were a couple missed opportunities. Again, it's hardly a problem and not the sort of thing that would stick out to a general audience or anything, but I don't know, it feels as if there were a couple moments that could have been given a greater impact had they followed the structure of the game more. Kinda hard to go into what I mean without spoiling, so I'll leave that till later. But really, my biggest problem with the movie comes down to the pacing, funnily enough having the exact opposite flaw than the second. Movie 2 felt super slow in the actual pacing of the scenes, especially by the end of the second act. Whereas Sonic 3 has so much it wants to get through that it results in a few moments feeling like they've rushed right by without getting everything they could have out of the interaction. At the end of the day, I'd rather this be the case than the other option, but there's certainly a few times where I couldn't help but feel like they have way too many characters for the time they're given. Still though, the humor is much better than the others, the action is the best we've seen so far, and those last 30 minutes, dude, are seriously spectacular, especially on the big screen. Overall, I'm incredibly satisfied with the final product, even if it does leave me questioning where they can take things going forward. But Sonic Movie 3 surprised me with just how much I enjoyed it. It's a solid film on its own, but as a Sonic movie, it's all a fan could ask for. And I'm actually really looking forward to seeing it again once it officially releases. If you're not a Sonic fan, I'm not sure if it'll win you over or anything, especially with a lot of his quips that border on being obnoxious at times. But if you just want to see a fun movie with great action and a genuinely heartwarming relationship between a girl and her hedgehog, I'd recommend it. Okay, if you don't give a crap about spoilers, stick around as I have quite a bit more to say. I've never done a spoiler-free review before. It sucks not being able to go into specifics about my thoughts. But just in case you need a little bit more time to think over whether or not you want to hear this, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. You know, I'm working on another ranking video right now, coming out next week by the way, subscribe. And it sure does suck having to pay for a streaming service to watch every episode of these long-running shows. I mean, half the time I forget to even cancel them afterwards. I'm basically throwing away money. Great, that's like $30 I could have bought, like, I don't know, 3 Sonic Funko Pops with that. If only I had Rocket Money, which safely and securely identifies recurring charges and cancels unwanted subscriptions. And that's why I'm glad today's video is sponsored by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a fantastic personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower your bills, and basically manage your money better. You can even do it from within the app with just a couple taps. No need to go through the streaming service website, which makes you play a goddamn hacking minigame just to find the cancel button. On top of that, you can set budgets by analyzing spending habits that work with your lifestyle. On average, they save you up to $740 a year, with over 5 million members using it. So be sure to go to rocketmoney.com/lsmark or click the link in the description to get started for free, with a premium feature containing even more. Once again, that's rocketmoney.com/lsmark, and thanks Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. If I see any of you complaining in the comments about hearing something, then you only got yourself to blame, you hear? Alright, first things first. Maria didn't get shot. Just kidding, they handled it as well as a PG movie could, I get it. Honestly, I feel like just rapid firing points that came to mind, so I apologize if this is a little disjointed, I just jotted them down after watching. I'll try my best to connect them. I love how they handled Robotnik and Gerald's relationship here. There are genuinely times where you forget that they're never actually on screen together, obviously both being played by Jim Carrey. But throughout all the advertising, it was made clear that this Gerald would be pretty different to how he's portrayed in the games, much more seriously. But I love that it was almost misdirection in a way. By the end, us getting the reveal that he was merely acting silly and playing along with Eggman so he could go along with his plan. Where he finally goes mask off and reveals that he doesn't give a shit about him and only ever cared about Maria. And now that she's dead, he's not only gonna kill every human on Earth, but himself too. It's surprisingly dark. This is then amazingly contrasted with how they defeat him by the end. I won't spoil it, but it genuinely made me laugh out loud in the theater. Maria and Shadow's connection actually managed to make me feel something deep down in my icy heart. Also appreciated them using their little montage to throw in a Bio-Lizard reference. But while what's here is good, it's hard not to think that in the attempts to grind this movie more, they've taken away a crucial aspect of their relationship. See, in Sonic 3, Maria and Shadow don't live in space on the Ark. Maria doesn't even have a sickness. They both just live in a gun lab hidden inside a mountain. She's only there because we hear in a throwaway line that Gerald takes her everywhere. It's not a huge deal, even if it creates kind of a continuity issue where Sonic 2 establishes Gun's creation being directly tied to the events of Sonic 1, yet here they were always a thing, I guess. But because of that, Shadow and Maria's connection feels to adapt arguably the most crucial aspect of their bond to one another. And it's that both of them haven't experienced a normal life on Earth, and share in their dreams of what it will be like to finally get there.
Shadow, what do you think it's like on Earth?
Maria, I just don't know anything anymore. I often wonder why I was created, what my purpose is for being here. Maybe if I go down there, I will find the answers. Maybe.
Obviously, this ends up making it much more heartbreaking for Shadow when it's made clear she'll never get to experience that. Bang. I understand why they didn't include it. I think casually having the characters just live in space might be a tad outlandish for the more grounded movie-verse, but it's hard not to wish this could have been translated more faithfully, even if it is perfectly serviceable without it. Their relationship here boils down to, she thinks he's cute, they're friends, she gives him sweet advice. But you know what? I got upset when she died. So as far as I'm concerned, they accomplished their goal, you know? Aside from Maria though, like I said in the spoiler-free section, my biggest problem was how rushed certain elements feel, and I think the main case of that has to be with Shadow's backstory. He falls from space in a meteorite. That's all we learn. There's specific moments that highlight the confusion between the characters on Shadow looking exactly like Sonic, and, well, yeah, I'd like to know too. The movie never follows up on it. They just look alike, which hey, I guess the games didn't do much different there, did they? But with him falling from space, I was expecting some kind of reference towards Black Doom, or at least some other reason as to why he's just floating around in space and not from Sonic's world like everyone else. But no, we never get it. I think it's the prime example of the movie running at such a breakneck speed that they never get the chance to sit down and expand upon certain elements. I want to know where Shadow came from. This is all until the ending, that is, where I love just about every decision made. This is probably where some of my fanboy bias is gonna shine through, but the final act of this movie is so fucking good. I love how they use it to isolate Sonic from his friends as he goes alone to kick the shit out of Shadow for almost killing Tom. Even having a neat bit of conflict between Knuckles as he takes the Master Emerald to turn himself into Super Sonic and fly to space, resulting in Shadow also using the Emeralds to turn into Super Shadow. The fight was so fucking cool. But it's not just mindless spectacle. It only mostly is. as they use this to greatly parallel how Shadow's been acting. That if Sonic is willing to kill over his friend being hurt, then how can he justifiably get mad at Shadow for doing the same? I love that connection, the games never did that. Their little talk on the moon was also great, if a tad short, but I love them bringing back that line Maria had said to him earlier about the light still shining even after a star dies, was super sweet. But dude, live and learn. There's a couple other points I could make, but honestly they're mainly just nitpicks and missed opportunities. Like Shadow specifically seeks out Commander Walters from the first two films to kill him, and he knows a bunch about Shadow, so I thought it was weird they didn't take the most obvious route of having him be the guy who resulted in Maria's death. But no, in fact he was pretty actively against the use of weapons on them in the flashback. Weird, but again, I'm not gonna act like it makes the movie any worse. Just would've been neat, you know? Overall, I'm just really satisfied. I think we really got the best scenario for an adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2 considering what the first two films gave them to build upon. Although I am a tad concerned about where they go from here. Okay, like, spoiler warning. They gone? Okay, sweet. What losers, am I right? So, Robotnik is dead, seemingly for real this time, so I think they're aiming to substitute him in the next movie with the reveal of Metal Sonic, which I think is their best option. These movies have kind of established themselves in pop culture so much that I think they can get away with not having Jim Carrey anymore. Maybe they use Metal Sonic to explain what Eggman's been doing with all those Sonic spines he's been taking over the films. Maybe the plot is that there's a backup protocol if anything were to ever happen to him and their goal is to, I don't know, revive him, zombie Robotnik, sure, I'll take it. But I'm mainly concerned from a marketing aspect. I already thought this one was pushing it, only elevated through the marketability of a character like Shadow. You know, Sonic 2 was speed versus power, blue versus red, while Sonic 3 was speed versus power, blue versus red. Again, they're elevated by Knuckles and Shadow specifically. Can Metal Sonic carry a marketing campaign like that? I don't know, but depending on how they do it, I can see it just being a speed versus power thing again. I also don't have much to say about Amy, given she doesn't really say anything. But she looks neat, weird Robin Hood hood aside. But I don't know, dude, from the glimpse we saw, she's giving real Peach from the Mario movie vibes. Hope we get to see an Amy that actually acts like Amy in 4. With the post-credit scene at 2, you have a pretty solid idea as to where it's gonna go. An adaptation of Adventure 2 seems fairly obvious. However, here I genuinely have no clue. I doubt they're gonna go with CD because that would require them taking things off the Earth, which I don't think they'd want to put the budget into. And we know for a fact they ain't having Amy get kidnapped. In current year, not if the woke mob has anything to say about it. Who knows, maybe they'll just do their own thing. I'm down for anything at this point, and if 3 is anything to go off, I trust them. Don't have much to say about the second post-credit scene other than immediately revealing Shadow is alive might have lessened the impact of his sacrifice a tad, and I worry that maybe having Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Metal Sonic, and Shadow in one movie along with the humans might get a little bloated, because other than Shadow the Hedgehog or 06, which I don't see them adapting ever, Shadows felt completely directionless in the games up until a couple months ago. But either way, that's for us to find out in the future. As is, I'm incredibly happy with Sonic 3. It ain't the best movie ever or anything, but I definitely give it the title of best video game adaptation. Not that the competition was anything to write home about, but I definitely recommend checking it out. I couldn't be happier. Okay. Spoiler warning. Are those guys gone? Good, you guys are the true Chads out there. You want to hear. So, everything I just said, Metal Sonic, Amy, Shadow being alive, lie. It's time for the 30-minute discussion about what role the Deadly Six will play in movie 4.